Hello, welcome to our presentation, a deep dive into the college application. And this presentation is provided to you by the NACRC, which stands for the Northern Arizona College Resource Center. And we are a free resource that provides services in researching schools for continuing education, which includes like trade schools, community college, and universities, scholarships and applications, essays and assisting you with those, in the financial aid process and scholarship searching, as well as just hosting workshops like this one.
My name is Tashana Stewart.
And I'm Zoe Nelson, and we're both college access mentors here at the NACRC. And we're going to move on to talking about the agenda of today's presentation. So looking into it, we have three big components that we're going to discuss. One, just the parts of what makes a college application, some general tips that Tashana and I have thought of, and just some next steps to think about moving forward. So the first part, we're going to jump into the components of a college application. And Tashana will be talking more so about these.
Yeah, thanks, Zoe. So like Zoe said, we're going to start off with the different components of a college application. The first one we wanted to cover was the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. This is not a required portion of your college application, but we highly, highly recommend it. This is why we put it in here and we put it first. I think when it comes to applying for colleges and universities, the amount of money that you have to pay for a college makes a really big difference. So you want to know how much aid that you'd be eligible for. So why not fill that out? Some things to know about the FAFSA. It's currently open. It opens on October 1st, which is almost a month ago now. So be sure to get that in. It remains open until the end of the aid year, which would be in 2022, but we do suggest to do so as soon as possible. A lot of financial aid is on a first come, first serve basis. So you want to get yourself in the pool to receive some money. You'll also need to use your 2019 tax information to fill out the FAFSA. You will not need to update this after you file your 2020 taxes. So when it comes to filling out the FAFSA, there's different types of federal student aid that you're able to get from that. There's grants, which you can see on here is highlighted in green. You have federal work study highlighted in like an orange color, and then there's loans highlighted in a blue color. So grants are different kinds of money that you get from the federal government that you don't have to pay for. One of the most common ones that's listed on here is the federal Pell Grant. Federal work study this one varies by school. So it's money that is earned and you don't have to pay for this. So if you qualify for federal work study, you would have to find a job on campus, and then the money that you were paid for that job comes from the federal government. And then the last one are loans. So there's three different types of loans on here: direct, subsidized, unsubsidized, and direct plus. Unsubsidized loans are the ones where as soon as you get that loan, the interest will start to accrue on that. And then subsidized loans are the ones where the interest is paid for by the federal government. So this is just to be aware of like the different types of aid that you get. And then also one thing to note, whenever if you do fill out the FAFSA and you receive your award letter, you are able to accept and or deny the different loans and grants that they offer you. So you don't have to like take all these loans that you probably won't need or you won't be able to pay back. And then to touch on some common questions when it comes to the FAFSA, there's a lot of common questions, but one of the most asked ones is what parent information needs to be provided on the FAFSA, because yes, you do have to provide parent information. This is really referring to your biological parents. If you do have a special circumstance, there is still like the possibility for you to fill out the FAFSA, and there's ways to work around it. Please feel free to reach out to us and we can kind of navigate what that will look like for you. The second question asks if you're unable to provide parent information due to special circumstances. Again, you can still complete the FAFSA. Just reach out to us and we can help you with that. The next question is, what if I can't afford the college application fees? It's important to note that some schools provide waivers to students who demonstrate different financial needs, maybe your counselor or the school that you're applying to. Feel free to just reach out to them, and I'm sure they'll be more than happy to help you. And then why do you need to fill out the FAFSA form ASAP? Again, some states and schools have a limited amount of money that they can give. So again, it's a first come, first serve basis. So filling out your FAFSA as soon as possible is really the best way to receive the most amount of money that you can qualify for. And then we have some additional FAFSA resources we'd like to share with you. So here at the NACRC, we do have a YouTube page. Check us out. Our YouTube channel is just called NACRC. And we already have 2 different workshops that we recorded that's already on here. One is a general overview of the FAFSA, and the other one is specifically about the FAFSA FSA ID, which is a key that you need to use when filling out your FAFSA. So be sure to check those out from us.
Now we're going to talk a little bit more about the college application. So one of the first questions to consider when you're filling out the application is the deadline, like when are you going to do it? And each college has their own little deadline and timeline. So we have something called early decision, early action, and rolling application. Early decision is when you will make a commitment to your first choice college or school. And if you're admitted to that place, then you will be enrolling with that school, and you're going to have to withdraw from your application from other schools if you apply to more than one school. Meaning that this is a binding, I don't want to say contract, but this is binding where if you're accepted as an early decisions applicant, then you must attend that college that you got admitted to. This is different than early action, which is non-binding. When you receive an early response to the application, but you do not have to commit to that college until the normal reply date of May 1st. So that's the distinction between early decision and early action. We have the third deadline, or I wouldn't say deadline, but just the rolling application, which actually doesn't have a strict deadline as the early decision and early action. You can apply to the school on a kind of anytime basis, and they will accept when they receive your application. And the Arizona State schools, which would include Arizona State University, University of Arizona, and Northern Arizona, and some community colleges within Arizona, utilize the rolling application more so than maybe other schools. Moving into the next part of like a reach, match, and safety school, this is something to consider when you're applying to your colleges. Basically, what a reach school is like a dream school. This is where your academic credentials, like your GPA, your grade point average, and your test scores, such as your ACT and SAT, are going to be pretty high and like competitive in comparison to some other students that have enrolled in that institution. And so when we talk about reach school, your academic credentials then might not be as high, or your credentials would fall below the school's range of the average freshman student. So basically it might be a little bit more difficult to get into, but the school will maybe take consideration of some other extracurricular involvement and your recommendations that you've received to be in it. A match school is where you're probably a good fit for it, meaning that your GPA and ACT scores are going to fall within the range, or perhaps slightly go above the school's range average of the freshman class. And so this is something that you would most likely be able to be accepted in. A safety school is when your qualifications are above the average of the freshman class. And so you aren't necessarily guaranteed you'll be accepted, but it's very likely that you would be able to get in without the rigor as some other schools. But really, all of this is to say that each school is going to be specific to you. And so we can't tell you and determine which is going to be your dream school and which one is going to be your safety school. And then moving forward, we're going to talk about the college application. This is what it sort of looks like. It just tries to provide some demographics of who you are and like what information is important. And there is usually a cost associated with this. It ranges from like $25 to $75. And because of that, there are a application fee waiver, which schools may utilize to be able to cover that cost. And we would recommend that you reach out to the admission office to get a school paper form waiver or a code for that school, and it can then, you would not have to pay for that application fee. That leads us to the next part, what Tashana will tell us more about.
Yeah, so the next part is talking about your transcripts. So for college admission, you will need to submit your official high school transcript, which will show that you have met the requirements for graduation at that school, and then also for admission to the university or college that you're applying to. So this is kind of what a transcript looks like. You can get these from your counselor or on your school website. I'm hoping that most of you might have already seen a transcript like this. One of the things I want to make sure that you all know as well is that for a college application, you will need to submit the official transcript. An official transcript needs to come directly from your school. So you need to reach out to maybe your counselor at the school or someone who works in the admissions office and provide them with the information of the university or college that you're applying to so that they can mail that over to that university for you. This is an example of what Arizona uses in terms of college acceptance. There's specific classes that they're looking for. So they want to make sure that you all have 4 years of math, 4 years of English, 3 years of lab sciences, 2 years of social sciences, 2 years of the same second language, and then 1 year of a fine art or career and technical education classes. So please be aware of this when you're looking to submit your transcript. You want to make sure that the classes that are needed for acceptance to the university that you're looking into is reflected on your transcript. So this could also be classes if you're a senior that you're still taking. If you're a junior, this is a great way to kind of like look and match and see maybe what classes you still need to take for your senior year. And then also your transcript will also include if you've taken any AP classes, specifically for dual enrollment classes. If you're taking and receiving college credits, let's say at Coconino Community College, you'll also need to submit a transcript from Coconino Community College for them to be able to see and count your dual enrollment credits. The next thing to touch on is your test scores. Not all schools are requiring this right now, but it's still a good idea to consider taking either the SAT or the ACT. In Arizona specifically, I believe we are more of an ACT school. ACT kind of test requiring schools. So make sure that you're looking into that. This just kind of breaks down what's on each of these tests. So the SAT has reading, writing, math, and then the ACT has reading, math, writing, and science. So these are really important because they help the universities kind of help determine if you will get in, because some universities will have like a test score requirement. Again, they don't all do. Currently, for example, NAU does not use a test score for you to get in. However, test scores can also come in handy when you're looking at scholarships and receiving other forms of financial aid.
Essays and involvement. So this part is really just describing who you are and wanting to be creative in your personal statement, describing that you have either maybe overcome a challenge or currently just what makes you a good fit for the university and for attending, and why you want to continue your education. And so part of that essay would then include some involvement of like describing what you've done. And this would say any like clubs, sports, or honor societies you've been a part of. I think also really important to note is that your involvement does not have to be strictly with your high school involvement. If you've done or participated in anything outside of the church or with work, like as a job, also include that in, because that is experience that has made you who you are. And really anything and everything is significant. It's also important to note like any academic honors or and achievements that you've been able to be awarded, to write that as well, in addition to any awards such as like the MVP award from your sports. But really, it's important to know that like some applications for college might include you to ask you to list activities that you've done. And so this is a good way to start thinking about this.
The last part of the college application components that we want to cover are letters of recommendations. So letters of recommendations, they might not always ask for them, but they just might, you never know. These are letters that someone else writes about you to kind of hype you up in a way and present you as fit for whatever you're applying for. So these should totally come from people like your counselors, your teachers, coaches, advisors, or anyone else that's able to speak on maybe your academic ability or your performance in a club or a sport or something like that. If you do need to get letters of recommendation, make sure that you're asking the person if they're willing and able to write you a positive letter of recommendation. It would be really awkward if you just ask someone to write you a letter of recommendation and it's not necessarily as positive as you want it to be. So make sure that you're asking the person if they're willing to do a positive letter for you for whatever you're applying for. These can also be for scholarships, not only for the college application. So keep that in mind. When you're asking someone, make sure that you're also giving them a lot of time in advance. I would probably say around 2 weeks is good enough time, but shoot for more than that. Again, the more time you're able to give that person, probably you get a better letter. They'd be more willing to say yes to completing it for you because they'll have enough time to write it for you. And then make sure that you're considering what your relationship is to the person. Again, you want to choose someone that would be able to write something that is positive about you. And then you should not be asking people like your family or your friends. And then another thing with that is make sure that if someone writes you a letter of recommendation, be sure to also send them a thank you letter as a courtesy. And now we're going to move on to talking about some, Zoe will provide you all with some general tips when it comes to filling out your college application.
Yeah, thank you. So we just want to recognize that when you fill out your college application, it is a process. It takes a lot of time. And so make sure you spend the time to make sure you have everything organized and be patient with yourself and other people. Another thing to keep in mind is just to ask questions for clarifications. If there's any portion of the documents that you're like, I don't really know what's asking for, then ask someone that you trust, such as like your counselors, teachers, or one of the NACRC members, and we are more than happy to help and make sure that you fill out the information correctly. And that leads us to the next point, that you need to provide all the information and request documents that are needed. So if that means providing an official high school transcript, make sure you provide the official transcript and not an unofficial transcript, as Tashana has mentioned before. And then make a plan for filling out applications before the deadline. So some deadlines can be as early as November 1st. I would also say consider, like, is a school, are you trying to go for an early decision or an early action application? Because those deadlines will look different then. I would also recommend to consider when you're talking about listing your involvement, like long-term versus short-term commitment that you've done in the activity. For example, if you've joined student council, how long have you been a part of student council? One day? Did you just participate in one of the events? Or have you been a member with them for the full year, or like 2 or however many years? And so that kind of leads us into just other 10 college application tips that we have found online and think it would be very helpful. One is to read application fields and requirements carefully. 2, pay attention to deadlines. I think we keep on reiterating this idea. Make sure you pay attention to deadlines. 3, use an appropriate email address. And so when we say this, make sure you recognize, like, is this an email address that you use consistently and constantly? Do you check it? Or is this an email that you've never used before? Or is it your parents' email? Because that information will be sent then to your parent, and you might not be filling it out, like checking it as frequently. The 4th bullet point says to list extracurricular activities carefully. And that is to my point of like recognizing your involvement duration time. The 5th point is to fill out all parts of your application yourself. So if there's anything that you can fill out, do so. 6, proofread for misspellings and grammatical errors. This is something that really admission officers and anyone who reads your application, if they see these typos, that might come off across as like you not showing a care for the process, and your application might just be disregarded because they don't want to spend time trying to figure out what you've said. 7 is to complete and submit your application. Obviously, if you can get through the first part of completing it, just don't forget to hit the submit button. 8, don't forget any required signatures. Tell your counselor where you applied and check your email regularly. And then some last other tips that we have thought for you is to be honest when you're filling out your application. Really, if there's any dishonesty, then it'd be a tight pickle, as they say, when there's any follow-up questions. Proofread all documents. This includes your forms, essays, scholarships before submissions. And I would recommend to have someone else proofread. This could be like one of the NACRC members, or like a teacher, counselor, friend, family member. Really just have another set of eyes to make sure that everything looks good to go. And then at this point, the Common App is just something that is helpful if you are applying to a lot of different universities across different places. This is where schools and universities use this one application form that you can fill out. And we would recommend, if you're going to apply to like Northern Arizona University, and then Stanford, and then University of Reno, Nevada, those would be a lot of different applications. It might be helpful to just utilize one application instead, but make sure that all of the schools that you would like to apply are listed in there.
And then the last part we'd like to cover before we wrap up is just sharing with you the next step. So now let's imagine you've completed your college application, which I know might sound scary, but we want to get you all thinking ahead so that you can be ahead in the process and you are kind of informed of all the different things that happen in the process. So after you submit your application, you know, there's this kind of like anxious waiting game, but we want to provide you with some things that you can do in the meantime. The first thing that we suggest is if you have any additional questions, be sure to contact an advisor or representative from the university, reach out to current students. They are really great resources to just answer any final questions that you might have before you commit to the university, or that in the meantime will help you get more information that will inform your decision later on. We also recommend that you take a campus tour. This is a really great way to kind of get a feel for the campus, see what it looks like, if that's something that's really important to you. These tours can be virtually, especially now in the time that we're living with COVID. But they're also still universities offering safe in-person options for tours. So highly recommend that, because you want to kind of see what the campus looks like, what the student environment looks like as well. And then also making sure that you're completing any tasks on your to-do list. So for many college applications, they will require you to create an account of some sort on their university's page, and this will give you access to kind of check the status of your application. And this is where they'll also put any tasks that you need to complete. So let's say they're asking for additional documents to go with your application. These might be listed here. So be sure to check those so that you aren't missing anything in your submission. And then the next thing that we recommend is that you start thinking about housing. So are you going to live on campus or off campus? Obviously, this would be more for those who are not going to be living at home. Start looking into what options are available for whatever one you would prefer on or off campus, excuse me, and just seeing what the prices are, what the options look like, and possibly start signing up. A lot of these campus housing, whether it's on or off, they're usually in very high demand and they fill up very quickly. So if there's a school that you're really sure about, you're really confident about, go ahead and apply for housing. I do know that some universities, for their on-campus housing, you can apply for housing to reserve a spot before you're even accepted. So that just kind of helps you in that process. And we'd also like to highlight that living on campus is super beneficial, especially if you're worried about maybe connecting and adjusting to a new environment and meeting new friends. Living on campus is a great way to not only be closer to your classes, but also be closer to the resources that are available to you. And you're more likely to take advantage of those resources that will really just help you in your own development and provide to the experience that you get in college. Both Zoe and I lived on campus during our college years, and we really enjoyed it. I lived on campus for all 4 years because I became a resident assistant, and I just loved it. So highly recommend.
Yes, and I also lived on campus for all 4 years. I was not a resident assistant, but I did work on campus, so it was very convenient.
Yeah. And then the next thing that we highly recommend more than anything is to apply to as many scholarships as possible. So scholarships are literally free money that you can get for school. There's tons and tons of scholarships out there. We put a couple different websites on on here that you can take a look at. There's scholarships.com, unigo.com, and FastWeb. You could even see from the scholarships.com website that they have over 3.7 million scholarships that you can search for. I know that it sounds scary and like a lot, but when you go on these websites, you can also filter the different scholarships. So let's say you play a sport in high school, you can like filter by athletic scholarships, or you can just search general scholarships that fit your interests and who you are. But we highly recommend doing scholarship applications, spending time submitting a lot of those so that you can have more money for college. On our NACRC Instagram, which you can find us at nacrc.az, every Monday we post a different scholarship opportunity for you. They typically come from one of these websites, so we kind of search through and pull out different ones that we think are interesting to share with you, just to get you thinking about it, and just to, we're doing some of the work for you by finding those scholarships. So be sure to check those out. Some common scholarships here we'd like to highlight. There's the AAIA scholarship, which is for Native American students. The Arizona Community Foundation Scholarships is a website that has a variety of scholarships that you can look for. And then there's the Earn to Learn initiative, which is a savings program where you save money and they match that amount. And that goes towards your college education. There's the Flynn Scholarship, which is a full scholarship for high achieving students who exhibit leadership skills. And there's also the National Merit Scholarships, which is based on different test scores. Again, we're not trying to scare you with this, but we just want to really emphasize the importance of finding scholarships for college, because who really wants to pay for college out of pocket? I know I didn't, because I can't really afford that. So I really relied on filling out my FAFSA and finding other scholarships as well. And again, the NACRC is here to help you with this. So if you literally don't know where to start, or you need help along the process of filling out scholarship applications, maybe writing the essays, please just reach out to us and we'd be happy to help you. And then the final step, decisions. Again, we know that this is probably far away and you're only already thinking about applying, but you also need to consider what's important for you in making a decision to the school that you're gonna go to. So you want to make sure that you're comparing your financial aid award letters from the different institutions, seeing how much aid they're giving you to pay for that university, but also compared to how much you would have left to pay out of pocket. And then also you want to consider which school has the most things that you're looking for. So on here, we have what is called a good fit. So that's a school, again, that has the most things that you're looking for. And some things that you can consider in these are maybe the school size is important to you. Maybe the different clubs and activities that they have there. Maybe the different spirituality opportunities that they have there, any internship opportunities. So these are things that you want to consider. And again, if you'd like to go through this with us, please just reach out and schedule a meeting so that we can talk with you about this. You must make a decision by May 1st, which is the National College Decision Day. So really be thinking about that after you submit your application. For me, when I was in undergrad and I was applying for universities, things that were important to me included location. So I didn't really want to go too far away from home, but I still kind of want to be a little bit far away so that I'm able to really immerse myself into that experience. So I stayed in state, but I was like 8 hours away from home. And then Zoe, do you want to share what was important to you?
For me, I think location, like geographic location. I've never lived in a place where it snowed before, and I thought that would be a really cool experience to get. And so partly why I decided to go to the university I did was because the weather, there was actually 4 seasons, and I was like, this is something cool. And I was able to take away and reflect. If I didn't like living in the snow, I knew I could always, after 4 years of college, I can just move back home and not deal with it anymore.
Yeah. And so all in all, this was a deep dive into the college application. We provided you with some components of the application, some general tips, and what things to consider towards making your decision.
That leads us to our land. We've made it to land. The deep dive has concluded. So thank you everyone for listening to this recording, and please follow us on social media. Facebook, you can just type in Northern Arizona College Resource Center, we'll pop right up. Shoshana mentioned Instagram. That is where we have our scholarships posted. Monday Money Mondays. That is a tongue twister for a Monday morning. And then we also have a TikTok, which is new and very exciting. And then last but not least, we have the YouTube channel that Tashana had mentioned before. And so really those are some big social media outlets that you can utilize. If you would like to give us a phone call or email, go ahead. Our phone number is 928-523-1803, or email us at nacrc@nau.edu. Thank you. And again, know that this is a free resource for you to utilize. Have a great day.